"Hey, old man, you want some work?" Laughs. James, clearly drunk and in a good mood, insults me once again, making my fists tremble with anger. Finally, my patience snaps, and I coldly respond, "No thanks." Furrowing my brows with frustration and rage, I make up my mind and start to leave. Suddenly, pushing through the crowd in the hallway, the president of the other company, Smith, comes running toward us. "What's going on here? What's all the commotion?" President Smith, with a stern look, sees me drenched in sake that James had spilled on me. In that instant, he becomes visibly upset. James, still oblivious to the situation, looks at his father, President Smith, with a puzzled expression. He will soon regret what he has done. My name is Ted Johnson, a 57-year-old man. Currently, I am the president of Showa Foods, a major food manufacturer. Leading all employees and working tirelessly for the company, Showa Foods has been around since my grandfather's time, and I am the third-generation president. When I was little, my father, already the second president, devoted himself to the company and worked passionately every day. When my father took me to observe the company and its operations a few times, I eventually began to dream of working at the same company. I dedicated myself to my studies to join my father's company and pursued an education in economics in college. During job hunting, I applied to Showa Foods as my top choice and was delighted to receive an offer. After graduating from college and joining the company, I learned the ropes like any other new employee. By the time I joined, everyone already knew I was the president's son and a candidate for the third president, but the employees treated me equally, without letting titles influence their behavior. My father, the president, also guided me strictly yet kindly, like any other employee. I diligently learned all aspects of the job without arrogance and gained experience in various positions. A few years ago, when my father retired from the presidency to become chairman, I was entrusted with the role of the third president. I resolved to dedicate myself even more to the company. The responsibilities of a president are challenging, and I gained a newfound respect for my grandfather and father, who handled their duties so effortlessly. However, I was determined not to be outdone, and I continued to immerse myself in work every day with enthusiasm. This passion remains unchanged today as I strive for the company's success through trial and error. Today, as usual, I handle my presidential duties and decide to take a break to get some fresh air. Leaving my office, I walk down the hallway, greeted by employees bowing their heads. I notice an unfamiliar young male employee approaching from the opposite side. Upon closer look, I recognize him as James Smith, a new employee at Azure, a major retail company we do business with. He is the son of President Smith and recently joined his father's company. I had opportunities to talk with President Smith in the past due to business dealings, and I had heard about James, but I had never spoken with him directly. Taking this chance, I decided to introduce myself and approached him with a smile. "Good morning, James. Nice to meet you. I'm Ted Johnson. I've heard a lot about you from your father. Are you here for a meeting or something today?" Assuming he knew I was the president, I greeted him lightly. James, however, clicked his tongue in annoyance. "Who are you, old man? I'm in a foul mood because I had an early morning meeting. Don't talk to me so casually." I was taken aback by his cold words and stood there stunned. Apparently, James doesn't know I am the president. Considering he had just joined the company, he probably hadn't memorized all the faces of the partner company presidents yet. Accepting this, I decided to introduce myself more clearly. "I apologize. Let me properly introduce myself. As I mentioned, my name is Ted Johnson. Actually, I am the president of this company." As I started to introduce myself again and reached for my business card, suddenly James waved his hand dismissively, cutting me off. "Yeah, I'm not interested. You're probably just some nobody employee. Sorry, but I don't have time to deal with dirty old employees like you. Just so you know, I'm the son of the president of this company's partner, Ami. Show some respect." Placing his hands on his hips, he began to look down on me, mixing in harsh words to inflate his own importance. Seeing James's behavior, I muttered to myself, just as the rumors say. According to the gossip, Ever since he joined AMI, he has been throwing his weight around, using his father's position as president to boss other employees. I had also heard stories about him using his colleagues and seniors for his convenience, and even taking their money. These were just rumors, and I didn't believe them, but seeing his attitude, they didn't seem far-fetched. He is capable at his job, but has a difficult personality, making him somewhat unpopular in the company. Despite his demeanor, I regained my composure as a president. As I tried to reintroduce myself, James interrupted me again. "Are you done? Unlike you, I'm a busy man." "What is Dad thinking, dealing with a small fry company like yours this early in the morning? I just want to finish this and go home." Muttering complaints, he sighed heavily and walked away. I was stunned to hear him call our company a small fry company and stood there dumbfounded. Realizing he mistook me for a regular employee rather than the president, I scratched my head, thinking about what to do. It wouldn't help to dwell on it, so I decided to explain properly next time we met and resumed walking down the hallway as if nothing had happened. A few days later, I was dressed as a janitor, cleaning the halls and windows. Though usually busy with my duties as president, I've always liked cleaning and would help out whenever I had time. I use this as an opportunity to observe the company's situation, which helps me in my presidential duties. Helping with cleaning tasks was something I decided to do on my own, despite being repeatedly stopped by my secretary and executives. However, being both a neat freak and stubborn, I didn't stop, no matter how much they told me. Finally, they gave up and reluctantly allowed it, saying, "If it helps with your duties, so be it." So now, I openly help the janitors during my breaks. Today, after finishing the usual cleaning and starting on the smoking room, a young male employee walked in. It was James again. He must have come to our company for business. Forgetting that I was in a janitor's uniform, I cheerfully greeted him. "Hey, James. Good to see you again. Working hard today too, right?" He glared at me with displeasure once more. After a moment of staring, he seemed to recognize me and exclaimed, "You're that old man from the other day. What's with the janitor's outfit? Did you finally get fired for being useless?" Still as rude as ever, he looked down on me. Not letting it bother me, I realized with embarrassment that I was indeed in a janitor's uniform and let out a modest laugh. Actually, I enjoy cleaning sometimes. I help out during my breaks. I was just cleaning the smoking room, but since you're here, I'll come back and finish it later. With that, I quickly put away my cleaning tools. As I finished cleaning up and was about to leave the smoking room, James smirked and, for some reason, began scattering trash right in front of me. He even overturned the trash can full of cigarette butts. While I stood there in shock, James laughed gleefully. "You like cleaning, right? I made it dirty just for you, so enjoy your cleaning." He laughed loudly and extinguished his cigarette in water. James then dropped the cigarette butt in front of me and threw his half-drunken cup of coffee on the floor before leaving the smoking room. This time, I was furious and rushed out to scold him, but he had already disappeared. Suppressing my rising anger, I clenched my fists quietly. Although I was infuriated, staying angry wouldn't help, so I quickly cleaned up the mess before any other employees arrived. I decided that I would confront James the next time I saw him. A few months passed without encountering James, and I continued with my usual presidential duties. Then suddenly, I received a call from Ami, one of our business partners. They informed me about an upcoming networking event and invited our company to participate. Such events are great for exchanging information and fostering relationships with partners and other companies. It would also give me a chance to meet James again. I saw this as an opportunity to address the disrespect I had experienced before, so I readily accepted the invitation and decided to attend the event with several colleagues. On the day of the event, I arrived at the venue with other employees and began greeting our business partners. While making my rounds, I kept an eye out for James, but he seemed to be running late. I sighed in exasperation, noting his tardiness. After finishing my rounds of greetings, we all enjoyed some drinks and chatted, exchanging information. As the alcohol started to kick in, I got up to go to the restroom. In the hallway, after washing my hands and straightening my hair and suit, I headed back to the venue and ran into James, who had arrived late. He was already drinking, holding a sake bottle in one hand, his face flushed red like an octopus, and hiccuping cheerfully. James stared at me intently and recognized me as the old man employee dressed as a janitor he had met in the smoking room. "What are you doing here? Who said an old man like you could join this party?" Perhaps due to his drunkenness, he insulted me with vulgar words. Remembering the previous incident and feeling anger rise again, I immediately started to scold him. "What you did the other day was terrible. What you did is unforgivable as a person. Apologize." Using stern words I rarely employed, I reprimanded him harshly. James, already red-faced, turned even redder with anger and threw the sake he was holding at me. I quickly raised my arm to shield my face, surprised. Luckily, the heat was bearable and I didn't get burned. But instead of apologizing, James laughed loudly and pointed at me. "What a fitting look for you. How does it feel to be soaked in sake? Feels great, doesn't it?" His loud laughter drew the attention of several other attendees in the hallway, who all turned to look at us. As soon as the attendees saw my suit stained with alcohol, their faces turned pale, and they began to panic. However, James didn't seem to care about the commotion around him. "You got what you deserved for talking big to the son of a president. Know your place. Our company buys products from your company and even gives you work, so show some respect." He started boasting as if his company was the greatest. It's true that Showa Foods is a manufacturer, while Ami is a major retailer with multiple stores. They buy our products, and lately we have been manufacturing goods on their request. Even if you asked who holds the upper hand, it wouldn't be clear, but Ami is certainly in a favorable position. Still, I was too angry to care about such things. Sorry, but so what if you're the president's son? That doesn't make you important. It's not right to look down on others because of a misunderstanding. Despite my angry words, James still thought he was superior and paid no attention to what I said. "Hey, old man, want some work? I dirtied the floor with sake just for you. Since you love cleaning, be grateful. Now bow down to me." Drunk and in a good mood, James laughed once again. He insulted me, making my fists tremble with rage. Dirtying the floor was not only disrespectful to me, but also to anyone who enjoys cleaning or works as a cleaner. James believed that being the president's son gave him the right to look down on others. After holding back my anger for so long, I finally snapped and coldly said, "I'm done with this." Furrowing my brow in frustration and rage, I made up my mind and started to leave. Just then, Smith, the president of the other company, pushed through the crowd in the hallway and came running over. "What's going on here? What's all the commotion?" President Smith, with a stern face, saw me drenched in sake. At that moment, he became visibly upset. James, still oblivious to the situation, looked at his father with a puzzled expression. He was about to regret what he had done. "President Smith, I'm sorry, but we're terminating our contract with your company." "What? Why?" President Smith's voice trembled with confusion, and James's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. President Smith repeatedly asked for details about the situation. "What's going on? Why are you so upset?" I opened my mouth to explain his question, but before I could, James, still drunk and shameless, began boasting about what he had done. "I poured hot sake on this old man. You gotta disinfect dirty things, right? I thought I'd kick him out of the venue for that." Hearing this, President Smith's eyes widened in shock, almost popping out of his head. But he quickly snapped out of it, his face turning red with rage as he yelled, "What are you thinking? Calling him an old man and dirty? This is outrageous." James, confused and clueless, was visibly shaken by President Smith's furious outburst. President Smith then began explaining on my behalf. He is the president of our business partner, Showa Foods, a major food manufacturer. We've talked about this before. Don't pretend you didn't know. James, apparently trying to recall, stared at my face, desperately searching his memory. As something clicked, he let out a small gasp and began to tremble. It turns out that when James joined the company, President Smith had given him materials and explained key business partners, including information about me. But James hadn't paid attention or seriously looked at the materials. He remembered the company but not my face or name. Thus, when we first met, he had no idea who I was. As the realization dawned on James, his face turned pale, but he still couldn't believe it, saying with a nervous laugh, No, that can't be true." As James sensed the atmosphere from President Smith and the other attendees, he began to realize the truth. Still in disbelief, he directly questioned me. "Are you really the president?" Trembling with fear, he asked me, and I didn't hesitate to introduce myself. "Honestly, yes, I am. Sorry for the late introduction. I am Ted Johnson, the current president of Showa Foods. I believe this is the third time I've introduced myself." I took out my business card from my wetsuit pocket and handed it to him politely. The moment James received it, his drunkenness vanished, and his face turned pale, even his alcohol-flushed cheeks. "You really are the president? Why didn't you say so when we first met? And why were you dressed like a janitor? Were you hiding your identity on purpose?" Instead of apologizing, James turned defensive and blamed me. I shook my head in disbelief. "Maybe because you didn't listen to others. As I explained before, I was dressed as a janitor because I enjoy cleaning and was helping out. Now we finally get to have a proper conversation." I said this with a hint of sarcasm, and James, unable to respond, looked flustered. Still, he tried to weasel out of his wrongdoing. "But even if you were the president, Showa is still smaller than our company, right? So ending the contract shouldn't be a problem, right?" James continued to belittle me even with me standing right in front of him. President Smith became even angrier upon hearing his son's rude words. "Don't be ridiculous. President Johnson's company is a beloved food manufacturer, worldwide popular for decades. If the contract is terminated, it will be a huge blow to our company," President Smith anxiously explained. James stood there, mouth agape in shock. In fact, my company had been widely and deeply loved domestically since my grandfather's generation. Under my father's leadership, it gained global popularity and was always in high demand among partners. One of those partners was Ami, with whom we had a long and strong relationship. We frequently collaborated on products and developed items based on their proposals. Terminating the contract would severely impact them, making it impossible to sell some products and significantly affecting their performance. Finally understanding the situation, James sobered up and regained his composure. Fearfully and hesitantly, he apologized. "President Johnson, I am truly sorry for what happened." Though he finally apologized after a long time, I couldn't forgive him. "I'm sorry, but I can't accept your apology. I've endured various humiliations from you. As I said earlier, we will terminate the contract." "What various humiliations?" President Smith seemed caught by my words and repeated them, seeking clarification. James, fearing exposure, hastily tried to divert President Smith's attention. Seizing the opportunity, I pushed through the crowd and left the venue, deciding to distance myself from their company for a while. I'd managed to return to my company unnoticed, but James didn't give up. From the next day, he repeatedly contacted me and even came to the office to apologize, but I remained unforgiving. Despite sending notices about terminating the contract, President Smith kept asking me to reconsider, stalling any progress, ignoring the apologies and continuing with termination notices. I felt the situation was going nowhere. A few days later, James and President Smith showed up at my office without an appointment. They knelt down and bowed deeply in the middle of the lobby. "We deeply apologize for Mason's rude behavior. We are truly sorry." With their foreheads touching the floor, they apologized, but I ignored James and addressed President Smith with a simple question. "President Smith, you're bowing and apologizing, but do you fully understand what James has done?" "Yes, of course. James threw hot sake at you, right? We are truly sorry." James insisted on personally apologizing and resolving this, which he had been trying to do for the past few days. "Please, considering our long-standing relationship, could you forgive him?" President Smith spoke urgently, but I was exasperated. James hadn't fully reported his behavior, including his actions during our first meeting and in the smoking room. He was likely trying to settle the issue before everything came to light. Ignoring James's intentions, I honestly revealed everything that had happened. I told President Smith about all of James's actions, including the insults he hurled at me when we first met in the hallway. He called me a worthless employee and a dirty old man, and how he deliberately scattered trash in the smoking room. Upon hearing this, President Smith glared at James, who was now panicking with a face full of rage. "James, what have you been doing behind my back? You never reported any of this. What's going on?" James was terrified by President Smith's furious outburst, but the worst was yet to come. "President Smith, there are other things James has done," I said. "According to our employees, he has been causing trouble every time he visits our company for business." The information seemed accurate as James began to visibly panic. After leaving the networking event and returning to my company, I had gathered information from my employees about James. Although I declared the contract termination out of anger, I wanted to ensure it wasn't a rash decision based solely on my emotions. Despite receiving an apology, I decided to collect information and think rationally before making a final judgment. What I found was nothing but negative reports. James would wander around our company during breaks, looking for targets to harass. Once he found someone, he would boast about being the son of the president of AUMI and exploit them, sometimes even extorting money. Additionally, he would often disrupt employees at work for his amusement and always ended his visits with, "You know what will happen if you tell the president, right?" Because of this, my employees were too scared to come to me about James's behavior. When I exposed his misdeeds, President Smith turned pale with shock, while James started to sweat and tremble. After hearing all this, I decided that I could no longer maintain a good relationship with a company that has such a troublesome employee. My decision to terminate the contract stands. As I expressed my desire to end the contract, President Smith's face turned ashen, and he bowed deeply. "Again, we are truly deeply sorry. I don't know how to apologize to you and your employees enough. James, you keep bowing until your head is worn down." President Smith grabbed James's head and forced him to bow. "I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I got carried away because of my father's title. I was just letting off steam by harassing others," he cried, explaining his reasons. James begged for forgiveness, but I couldn't forgive him anymore. He didn't just trouble me, he also caused significant distress to my valuable employees. While our company might take a hit, it was better than having my employees endure such stress. I was also once the president's son, but I never acted like you. Watching my father, the former president, I aspired to be a respectable leader. Did you ever truly watch and learn from President Smith? Looking him in the eye for the first time in a while, I asked. Unable to respond, he hung his head in silence. President Smith, now even angrier, began yelling at James again. "Acting selfishly and causing trouble, you've gone too far. You are fired, and you'll pay for all the damages caused by this incident." Hearing this declaration, James, who hadn't expected to be fired, clung to his father's legs in desperation. "Wait, please don't do this. I'm the next president. If I leave, who will take over?" "That's old news. We don't need an employee like you. I'll find a reliable person to be the next president. You're disowned as well." James, who had once been the promised successor, saw his future come crashing down due to his own actions. President Smith pushed him away and walked back to the company alone. As James reached out crying, he turned to me, clinging to my legs and begging for forgiveness. "Please help me convince my father," he tearfully pleaded. But I, like President Smith, pushed him away and returned to my office. James left crying in the middle of the lobby and was soon escorted out by security, walking back to his company in despair. Later, he was called into President Smith's office, where he faced further scolding. Once the lecture ended, he was officially fired and held responsible for the damages caused by the termination of our contract. Furthermore, he was disowned by his family, leaving him with massive debts. Though he tried to find another job to repay his debts, his troublesome personality was quickly discovered during interviews, and no one would hire him. Time passed, but his situation only worsened. Eventually, James gave up on finding a new job and started taking on multiple part-time jobs. However, his bad attitude caused problems with customer service, leading to daily troubles. As a result, he got fired from his part-time jobs as well. He continued to drift from one part-time job to another, encountering the same issues and getting fired repeatedly, making it difficult to earn money. He survived for a while by selling his personal belongings. When he could no longer pass interviews for part-time jobs and his savings ran out, he finally reached out to the cleaning industry, which he had once looked down on, and was hired as a part-time janitor. The job involved cleaning a building, and James was relieved to have found work. However, his supervisor was very strict and paid no mind to James's personality, providing harsh training every day. James worked while crying daily but couldn't quit because he needed to pay off his debts. He endured learning discipline from his tough supervisor. Although he was gradually paying off his debts, his salary was low, so he lived a poor life, cutting down on food costs and eating mostly bean sprout dishes. As for me, I continued to work tirelessly as the president for the company's sake. After officially ending the contract with Almi, our performance dipped slightly as expected. However, by starting deals with other companies, we returned to profitability. Almi, on the other hand, saw its performance plummet into the red after our contract ended. However, they managed to avoid bankruptcy by signing contracts with several other companies. I continued my hobby of cleaning within the company, enjoying every day. Though it's still early when I retire as president, I plan to work as a janitor while serving as chairman, continuing to watch over the company. Incidentally, I plan to appoint my son, who I had with my wife when we were young, as my successor. He is already an adult and currently training as a sales department employee at our company, but he's still very green. However, he has great potential, and in a few years, he will undoubtedly become the fourth president standing at the top of this company. Until then, as a father, I aim to grow this company into a better major corporation and create a more comfortable working environment. Someday, as a proud president, I will gladly hand over the president's chair to my well-prepared son. With this goal in mind, I continue to tackle my duties as president with vigor, undeterred by age.